Friends, hello. My name is Ihor Havryshchak. This is the YouTube platform of Channel 24, live on June 29. Today we will talk about the parliamentary elections in Georgia, discuss everything that is going on there, and give details to our guest, Georgian journalist Irakli Tabliashvili. Good evening, glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Let me remind our viewers who have forgotten that parliamentary elections were held in Georgia on the 26th. The exit polls showed who had turned to the exit polls, and the Georgian Dream Party immediately claimed that they had won, and the opposition claimed that the opposition had won. And so the protests began. Yesterday, many representatives of the opposition gathered in the center of Tbilisi. They did not stand for long, as far as I understand, but still a lot of people gathered. There is talk of mass falsification on the part of Ivanishvili's party. Irakli, first of all, I would like to ask you about the Georgian Dream Party, which was created by Ivanishvili in 2012. As far as I understand, it is pro-Russian. In order for our viewers to understand how this political force has existed in Georgian politics for so long and who supports it, please tell us. In fact, this special operation of the Russian security services began in 2013 when the Georgian Dream Party, created by the oligarch and pro-Russian politician Ivanishvili, defeated Mikhail Saakashvili's party. It came to power in 2012 and had the guise of a democratic or pro-Western party from 2012 to 2016. Ivanishvili preserved this to some extent by keeping more or less normal politicians in his team, who adopted, for example, anti-dealing reforms. The then defense minister and the chairman of the parliament pursued more or less normal policies. From 2012, conditionally, until 2016, especially after February 24, 2022, the Georgian dream has absolutely transformed into the Georgian-Russian dream. I will especially emphasize that since February 24, 2022, it can no longer hide that it is in fact not a Georgian dream, but a Georgian dream, which is also dreamed by Moscow. Moscow has the same dreams for Georgia. So how has it held out? Even in 2020, it can be explained by the fact that in 2016, when the party came to power, it is difficult to understand why it won the 2020 elections. I want to emphasize that this win is on paper. In fact, it lost, but it falsified the results and showed about 54 to 55%. In fact, the vast majority, not only in Tbilisi, but also in the districts, do not support this pro-Russian or Russian Georgian dream. But strangely enough, they added 13 to 14, 15% to themselves.
Вот никак не понять, почему она выиграла выборы 24 года. Выиграла, я подчеркнуто хочу сказать, что это выигрыш на бумаге, на самом деле она проиграла, но сфальсифицировав результаты. И ФСБ, проводя вот эту гибридную спецоперацию против Грузии,
You mentioned exit polls that showed 40 to 41%. All objective organizations that have been doing exit polls in different countries for decades have shown exactly that percentage.
Но, как ни странно, они прибавили к себе 13, 14, 15%. Вы упомянули
We were all celebrating that finally, after 12 years in power, Georgian Dream was losing. But an hour and a half or 2 hours later, the CEC announces completely different results to the whole world, including Ukraine.
с прихода у власти мечта проигрывает, но через час, полтора, два с их друга объявляет абсолютно другие результаты и всему миру, и в том числе и в Украине.
Our friends in Ukraine need to understand that it wasn't us who lost. They created figures indicating they will govern our state for another 4 years. And these 4 years, if they remain in power, although I doubt it, but it will be good if we talk about it. But these 4 years, if they remain in power, will be catastrophic for the statehood of Georgia. Russia is looking for a weak state, and having found it, it will gradually integrate into Georgia. It will come to life in all institutions, universities, conceptual or non-conceptual structures. For example, the Russian Ministry of Defense has its own revenge against us, and it will try to punish us. Of course, we will endure all this, we will fight our way through. So far, Ukraine is holding on. Thank you for the front line, and our situation is a little bit worse, to be honest. But we are also holding on, because those voters who said no to the Georgian dream are to this day participating in rallies, speeches, or on social networks saying that it will not pass. Here's my perhaps not short answer. Yes, thank you very much. That's what's important, that we understand the nuances and details of everything that's going on. I'd also like to ask you, you said that the government might not last the next 4 years, but it's rigging to try to hold it. Why won't it hold on?
Другая вендетта, месть против Украины, и против Грузии, и против всех свободолюбивых стран. Она никак не смирилась с тем, что наши народы еще в далеких 90-х, да, 90-м, 91-м, 89-м, 92-м даже, да, а мы осмелились и пошли против России. Мы против советской России, против советского государства, сталиновского, там, лениновского, прежнего государства, да, или Горбачева даже, да. И у России есть своя вендетта, своя месть против нас, и, конечно же, она постарается нас наказывать. Выдержим все мы, конечно же, пробьемся. Пока что Украина держится, и спасибо за our frontline country. А у нас немного похуже, если честно, ситуация, но у нас, мы тоже держимся, потому что мы, вот те избиратели, которые российской мечте сказали нет, они...
There was a rally yesterday, and the opposition dispersed quickly. It's important to know if there are leaders, like...
Это не пройдет, товарищ. Вот мой, возможно, не короткий ответ, но... Я полагаю, что много подтем я охватил своим ответом.
Mikhail Saakashvili, who is in prison, to guide the people in legitimate actions against the government. With your permission, I will start with the last question. Of course, we do not have such a charismatic leader as Mikhail Saakashvili.
Как я понимаю, очень быстро разошлась оппозиция. И еще важный вопрос. Да, Иракли, еще важный вопрос. Есть ли такие лидеры сейчас, как, хотя бы, как Михаил Саакашвили за решеткой, вот что-то наподобие Михаила Саакашвили, чтобы мы понимаем, народ-то есть, а народ против, но кто-то должен в этой ситуации...
He is a politician with great charisma, to be honest. But the current president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, is also a very charismatic person. And she was born, let me briefly tell her story in 2 sentences.
Настолько харизматичного лидера, каким был или является по сей день Михаил Саакашвили, конечно же, у нас нету. Он политик с большой харизмой, если честно. Но
she is not from Tbilisi, not from Georgia, but was born in exile in Paris. She is the daughter of those emigrants who lost against Soviet Russia in the 21st year of the last century.
В 2 предложениях расскажу ее историю. Она не из Тбилиси, не из Грузии. Она родилась в эмиграции в Париже. Она дочка тех эмигрантов, которые в 21 году прошлого столетия, они проиграли против
On February 25th, Georgia was occupied. She lived in France, in a left-wing neighborhood near Paris, and grew up with anti-Soviet opinions or reasoning in her family or in the community where she grew up. Yes, she said historic words a couple days ago. She says she came back to Georgia to take back my state.
Антисоветские мнения или рассуждения были в ее семье или в той общине, где она росла, да. Пару дней назад она сказала, я полагаю, что исторические слова. Я, говорит, не потому приехала, еще она была министром иностранных дел при Саакашвили первым. Я, говорит, не потому приехала, не потому вернулась в Грузию.
Not to give my state to Russia.
Отдать мое государство. России сдать мое государство.
No, Saakashvili is certainly a charismatic leader. He is, I believe, a strong personality, and so on. But Salome Zurabishvili today already holds the main flag of the European Union and Georgia. And being a legitimate president, she is a real leader of this society. The political parties that made it into parliament, including the opposition and Mikhail Saakashvili's party, currently trust her. This is positive, as it shows that despite not pardoning Saakashvili for various reasons, his party can still unite with Salome for the national movement. So that's the first or second answer to the second question. As for the first question, I spoke a lot. I had a monologue of 3 to 4 minutes. I don't remember. You mentioned that there was an action for 2 to 3 hours, but it wasn't even planned to do an action for more. Which actors will play a very important role? Why is there confidence that Georgian Dream still this process won the elections? And because our Western partners have already joined in, for example, Sweden or Canada, have already definitively severed relations with Georgia. A statement was made from Canada that at the G7, all countries will probably reconsider relations with the usurpers of Georgian power with Ivanishvili's team, i.e., with the de facto and de jure authorities.
Все-таки этот процесс, она выиграла, так сказать, выиграла в кавычках выборы, но почему грузинская мечта проиграет процесс? А потому что уже включились уже и западные наши, имеется в виду западные партнеры страны, общества. Допустим, Швеция и Канада уже окончательно разорвали отношения с Грузией. И причем из Канады такие...
I believe that this will continue in Europe and across the ocean. Canada has already done this, and as I said, there was such a statement from Canada about the revision of relations with the official usurpers of power in Georgia with Ivanishvili's team. I believe that this will continue, both in Europe and across the ocean, especially if for 2-3 hours a week, 2 or 3 times, 5 out of 6, 1,000 people will not get tired and will protest. President Duda of Poland made a very tough statement. President Macron, who is on good terms with the mentioned Zurabishvili, is going to make a statement the other day. And in the international arena, it seems that we hear from Washington about the creation of a commission that will work on the question of how to prove the facts of falsifications and who will be involved. Mr. Miller from the United States responds that the Georgian ruling party will not participate in this. No one is asking them.
Открытая информация, а он тоже собирается сделать заявление. Причем создается на международной арене, вот Вашингтон говорит, что из Вашингтона слышно, что создается комиссия, которая будет работать над вопросом, как же сфальсифицировала результаты выборов грузинская мечта. И на вопрос, примет ли участие, кто должен доказать или кто будет участвовать,
it will be an independent investigation, most likely under the auspices of the European Union.
В этом не будет участвовать, и никто не спрашивает. Это будет независимое расследование, скорее всего, под Евросоюзом, под под зонтиком Евросоюза.
And so those 3 or 4, 5 components, the fact that people are not tired, the fact that, yes, there was shock, frankly, there was shock, especially after the exit poll results were announced. I don't remember the words. Yes, there was a shock when the CEC announced the first results, that Georgian dream. Georgian society is already coming out of this shock. And if the day before yesterday, or on the 26th or 27th, there were some pessimistic sentiments that we are failing because Ivanishvili falsified, he has 5-6 billion, and he will always have such big money that can be used to bribe or intimidate someone. Yes, already today, already yesterday, and today these sentiments. No, it's not lost, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, because we have to realize that we don't have to get tired. Neither does the average Ukrainian who is on the front right now. He is fighting with a machine gun in his hands. I am fighting with a pen in my hands, and I will fight against what they are, against the Russian hybrid power, because they are going to abolish both your statehood and mine. Abolish is not a word for romance, conventionally speaking. In fact, they are going to perhaps leave some contours of our states, or even not, but in some form or symbolic attributes of statehood. But they will abolish independent foreign and independent domestic policy. They will have their own FSB officers in each structure. What is really happening in Belarus? Do the people want independence or sovereignty? This state has its own flag, but Belarus is not an independent state. It is a dependent state on the Kremlin, on Putin, on the FSB, and so on. They are going to do it, to expand their zones of influence, to bargain with us on Abkhazia or South Ossetia. And what are we, freedom-loving people or society, to do? That's why we are coming out of shock. Salome Zurabishvili is in fact already a real leader today. She is holding the flag, and we have hope that the West will help us. But it will help us not only with statements, but let's say there will be sanctions against his associates and his family. Perhaps ordinary citizens will also fall under these sanctions, let's say visa-free regime. That is, he will be stopped for some time.
В своих руках общество не устает, и у нас есть надежда, что Запад нам поможет. Но поможет не только заявлениями, а на самом деле, допустим, Иванишвили будет санкционирован.
Yes, I do not have the right to speak on behalf of the entire Georgian people, but I personally agree, to be honest. If there are 6 of us, if it helps for 6-8 months, let them stop, because it is possible to endure without Europe, without shopping, let's say in Milan or Vienna or Amsterdam, but without statehood, it is impossible to endure a second. And I agree, I am ready for that. I'm well aware of that. Here is my not quite brief answer. Yes, Irakli, and a very telling indicator, one could say so, is the fact that Hungarian Prime Minister Orban came to Georgia immediately. He even congratulated Georgian Dream on its victory at once. It has not been announced yet. Orban immediately, you can put a stamp, clearly pro-Russian. And here's the answer. I think anyone who does not know Georgian political cuisine is strange. Today my colleagues were recalling the case when in 2012 Georgian Dream won against the National Movement, that is the party of Mikhail Saakashvili.
Ну и мы знаем, куда не сунется Орбан, сразу можно ставить печать, понятно, пророссийский. Вот и ответ, я думаю, тот, кто не знает грузинскую политическую кухню.
Ну, что касается Орбана, да, как ни странно, сегодня мои коллеги вспоминали случаи, когда в 2012 году же грузинская мечта выиграла у национального движения.
Orban also came then, and guess who he supported? He supported Mikhail Saakashvili then, 12 years ago. So it's strange, but already today, Orban, of course, was formed as a Trojan horse in the middle or in the east of the EU space.
Но уже сегодня Орбан, конечно же, формировался троянским конем в середине или на востоке, или в пространстве Евросоюза. Он на самом деле человек, который
He is actually the man who, imagine, invited Chinese policemen to patrol in the center of Budapest. Imagine, under the sauce that there are a lot of tourists from China there, they should help tourists from China in Budapest.
Да, это тот Будапешт, я с удовольствием бы подискутировал с любым интеллектуалом, проорбановским интеллектуалом, если такие имеются в Будапеште. Это та страна.
Yes, this is the Budapest that Soviet troops marched into on tanks in 1956. Yes, the Soviet occupiers. Already in the Czech Republic in 1968, as you know, and in Tbilisi in 1989. How can you support such a pro-Russian politician?
И как же надо поддерживать вот такого пророссийского политика. Да, вот эта связка Путин, Орбан, Иванишвили и...
Yes, this bundle, Putin, Orban, Ivanishvili, and his team exists. And I don't understand, let's say as a person who lives, I don't know, in some EU country, let's say in Germany. Germany is a strong country, but not in the sense of a new Trojan horse in the person of Ivanishvili, who tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, will repeat the nonsense that Orban is talking at meetings. At the meetings of the Prime Minister, he made some speech and so on. He was stopped by journalists, frankly, who started questioning and interrogating Orban. But a lot depends. With your permission, I'll go on with the answer. A lot depends on what happens exactly at your place, the center of attention of the whole of Europe and the whole world. I not only hope, I am absolutely certain, I don't live a day without it, that Ukraine will win. And if Ukraine defeats this noisy evil empire, then of course it will be easier for many peoples, including, first of all, Georgians in Georgia.
Но многое зависит, я вам, с вашего позволения, и продолжу ответ. Многое зависит от того, что произойдет именно у вас. В центре внимания всей Европы, всего мира, конечно же, Украина. И я не только надеюсь, я абсолютно уверен, я без этого не живу ни день, что Украина выиграет. И если Украина одолеет вот эту кощунственную империю зла, конечно же, многим народам, в том числе и в первую очередь грузинам, да, на Грузии, будет легче, потому что...
Because Russia, if it exists at all, will be very weak beyond the Caucasus Ridge, including the Black Sea. Yes, this breeze of freedom will blow not only to Georgia, to the Caucasus, to the Black Sea, but also to Sakhalin, let's say. But this does not mean that we should look only at Ukraine. We need to act. And I repeat that we were shocked because we were all waiting. Imagine I have my blog, and at 8 o'clock there were the results of this exit poll. I recorded before the results. I recorded my first video message to the Georgian people, that I congratulated and said that here is the end of this pro-Russian Georgian dream. And it turned out that I cheated. But I have not deleted this blog, I emphasize. I told myself and my viewers in the following blogs that let it remain for history, because Georgian people voted against the Georgian dream. It is simply impossible, physically, arithmetically, and conceptually, in no way possible for the Georgian dream to rule like that. Imagine, according to opinion polls, 78.8% of our country supports the European Union and NATO, and that the Georgian dream goes against the European Union and NATO. And Georgian dream gets votes there, I don't know, 54 or 50%. So they also get in. It is impossible. Yes. In reality, without the administrative resource of the Georgian dream, it is only 30% or even less. But nothing. Life goes on, comrades. The war also goes on. War, not fighting. War is actually against Russia, because it is not coming in now with guns and tanks. But Russia is a country whose politics cannot be predicted. And of course, we all want peace, but it is impossible to predict Putin, not only Putin's Russia, Russia in general.
Но ничего, жизнь продолжается, товарищи, и война тоже продолжается. Война, не борьба, война на самом деле против России. Потому что она не входит сейчас оружием в руках, танками, но Россия страна Россия страна, как предугадать политику, которой невозможно. И конечно же, мы все хотим мира, мы всем им должна, но предугадать Путин, так не только путиновскую Россию, вообще Россию, да, не понять. Умом Россию не понять.
You can't understand Russia with your mind. So yes, Irakli, I will give you yes and one last sentence, with your permission. I want to tell your viewers that Georgian people, together with Ukraine, support not only the soldiers who are in Ukraine, but also ordinary people. Journalists. We have a special program on my channel where I work called Events from Ukraine. It airs live on Thursdays and Wednesdays. Every detail there is taken apart by colonels and so on, professionals. We support, and of course we stand together, I guess, against this nightmarish evil empire. Irakli, I would also like to ask you, you mentioned that Sweden has announced that it is suspending cooperation with this power, Canada as well.
Приостанавливает сотрудничество с этой властью, Канада также.
Don't you think that this can somehow isolate Georgia, Georgians in particular, and push Georgia even more into the bosom of evil, the evil empire of Russia, pushing not Georgia, but Ivanishvili? Yes, most likely this risk exists. But on the other hand, the logic of Canada's policy, its decision, Sweden's decision, and the possible logic of other EU or US countries' actions are clear to me. Yes, logic can push.
Политики Канады, решения со стороны Канады, со стороны Швеции, и со стороны возможная логика, возможные действия со стороны других стран, Евросоюза или Штатов, да. Логика мне, да, толкнет. Но с другой стороны, я могу...
But on the other hand, I can turn this question around and ask it this way. If they suspend, let's say, financial grants, loans, aid, if they suspend the visa-free regime that I mentioned, or some programs on healthcare, financial aid, and so on, or on the army and the armed forces, won't that raise a question? I'm just asking this question and I'm not answering it myself. For Georgians to take to the streets not 50 or 60,000 people, as it was the day before yesterday, but 500,000 people standing on Rustaveli Avenue who actually enjoy these benefits from the West, we mean visa-free regime or free trade with the European Union, obtained back in 2013-2014. So I don't know. It has to be checked. It's not spontaneously decided by Stockholm, Copenhagen, London, Paris, Brussels, or Washington, no. Or Ostaya. It has to be not spontaneously, but calculated. Because on the one hand, we are playing chess, and on the other hand, Russia is at war with us, by force. I don't know. But I believe that if there is a clear message, even the administrative resource, representatives of the administrative resource, about 3,000 people in Georgia, will sooner or later say that we are fucked because the exchange rate of $1 to 2.7 lari. But if it will be a disaster for finances and economy for the majority of Georgian population. But if the exchange rate goes down, everyone will go away and say that Ivanishvili's policy is an economic policy leading to isolation and disaster.
Да, политика, которая ведет нас к изоляции, она катастрофична. И если мы хотим вернуть
If we want to bring the exchange rate back to 270, conditionally 250, 273, then it just has to be removed, of course, by democratic way. I am absolutely sure that representatives of law enforcement agencies, KGB, are watching this interview in Georgia, and I tell them, if they are listening, that, I mean, of course, the constitutional way of changing the power in Georgia.
конституционный путь смены власти в Грузии и...
On the other hand, bearing in mind that these falsified elections by Ivanishvili's team should be annulled, it is necessary to appoint new, absolutely new democratic elections where there will be no team playing to the Georgian-Russian dream. Absolutely independent people should be included in the CEC and ensure democratic elections in Georgia. Irakli, thank you so much. Yes, I really hope so, too. Thank you very much for this conversation. Georgians, as we know, support and Ukrainians support Georgians. This has always been so, and you deserve a true, correct Georgian dream, not the one that Ivanishvili has now. Thank you very much. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you. I'll give our viewers a guess. We had Irakli Tabliashvili, a Georgian journalist with whom we talked about the parliamentary elections in Georgia, the administrative resources that Ivanishvili's party is using, and about the Russian oligarch. I very much hope